midnight in Nashville, and the ghosts are wide awake. On a silent stage where legends once stood, Bill Anderson faces the dark, carrying a secret that's waited 6 decades to surface. They call him Whispering Bill, not because he's shy, but because his voice, soft and low, tells stories most men wouldn't dare say out loud. Behind every tender lyric and calm smile was a burden he never fully spoke of. Bill didn't come into country music with thunder or flash. He arrived gently, like a wind through an open window, quietly reshaping everything it touched. Born November 1st, 1937, in South Carolina, he was never supposed to be a singer. At the University of Georgia, he dreamed of sports writing, filling notebooks with poems during breaks between classes. But dreams are fragile things. Sometimes, when life breaks your heart early, the only thing left to do is sing through the pieces. One of those poems became a song called City Lights. It was soaked in loneliness and regret. When Ray Price recorded it in the late 1950s, the song climbed to the top of the charts. That one song opened every door Nashville had to offer. But what Bill walked into wasn't just a music town. It was a place haunted by stories, where the echoes of sorrow were as real as any applause. And above all those stories stood one name, Hank Williams. Dead at 29, but more alive in legend than most men ever are in flesh. Hank's legacy didn't just hover over Nashville. It breathed down the necks of every singer who stepped into the spotlight. Bill didn't chase Hank's ghost, but the ghost came looking for him. One cold evening, alone at the Ryman Auditorium, Bill was rehearsing when he heard a voice whisper from the darkness, "Don't sing it if you don't live it." A week later, another voice followed, chilling him to the bone. "That's what killed me." These weren't lines from a forgotten script. They were warnings, passed from one era to the next, too strange to ignore and too specific to forget. After that, the Opry never felt quite the same. The stage lights didn't fully chase away the shadows, and the scent of old whiskey and faded dreams hung in the air. Bill began to feel like he wasn't just performing in the same building Hank once did. He was sharing the same burden, the same ghosts, the same secret fears. Then the dream started. Not the kind you wake from and shake off. These were heavy, vivid dreams where Hank appeared, his eyes hollow, his voice urgent. "You know too much," he'd say. "Tell him what I did, but only when they're ready." Night after night, these dreams soaked into Bill's songwriting. He didn't just write about heartbreak anymore. He wrote about something deeper, something harder to name, like guilt that didn't belong to him or sorrow passed down through bloodlines of melody. In the daylight, Bill stood tall as a member of the Grandoleopry, one of the most successful songwriters of his generation. But when the spotlight faded, he was just a man carrying too many voices in his head and too many ghosts on his shoulders. By the mid-60s, his fame couldn't save him from the weight of that shadow. His marriage suffered. He was often absent, choosing the dim corridors of the Opry over the warmth of his own home. His children saw him less. His wife told friends that he wasn't chasing fame anymore. He was chasing something invisible. And she wasn't wrong, because then came the letters. They arrived without warning. No return address. Just a single letter, H, written on the envelope. Postmarked from Alabama. The messages inside weren't threats. They were pleas. "Tell the story you owe. It's not over. You know the truth." Bill didn't show them to anyone at first, but they disturbed him. They weren't signed, yet he somehow knew who sent them. Or maybe it wasn't who, but what. In 1974, after a concert in Montgomery, an elderly woman approached him. She handed him a manila envelope, said it once belonged to Hank. Inside were 3 handwritten pages, lyrics. Words about betrayal, spiritual debt, and a young poet cursed before his time. Bill read them in silence, heart pounding. He never recorded that song. Never even spoke its title aloud. But it changed him. He admitted, quietly, that sometimes when he wrote, it didn't feel like he was alone. That the words came too fast, too perfect, like they were being handed to him from someone else's memory. In 1985, he wrote, "When you leave that way, you can never go back." The song tore through hearts across America. To most, it was about loss and regret. But to Bill, it was something more. It carried Hank's fingerprints. It felt like a confession, one he was only allowed to share in code. Even as his bank account grew, something in Bill kept fading. Friends said he looked haunted. Not in a dramatic way, just in his eyes, the way they drifted to empty corners as if he saw someone the rest of them didn't. To find peace, he bought a cabin near Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It was quiet, far from the industry noise. But even there, he heard the whispers. The dreams didn't stop. The letters kept coming. And Bill started speaking of a time when he'd be old enough to tell everything, when the truth wouldn't sound like madness. In the late 90s, he was struck down by heartbreak again. His wife, Betty, passed away after a long illness. They'd been married 44 years. Her death nearly silenced him for good. For 2 years, he vanished from the public eye. No concerts. No studio. Just silence and grief. During those empty nights, he told close friends about a final letter from Hank, one he kept hidden. He read it alone, always at night, like scripture. The words weren't clear, but the feeling was. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a warning. Or maybe a plea. When he returned to music, it wasn't the same. His songs had always carried sadness, but now they carried something more, a ghost's breath behind every syllable. In Montgomery, folks whispered that they'd seen Bill by Hank's grave late at night, speaking softly to the headstone, as if finishing a decades-long conversation. The connection between them, whether real or imagined, refused to die. In the 2000s, Bill had a career revival. He wrote hits for others, appeared on stage again, smiled for cameras. But those who really knew him saw it. A flicker missing. Like the man who returned wasn't the same one who'd gone away. Then came the night in 1988 that he couldn't explain. After reading Hank's letter one sleepless evening, Bill saw a figure standing by his fireplace. A tall man. No hat. Eyes that didn't blink. It didn't speak. Didn't move. But it didn't need to. Bill understood. It was recognition. And a warning. That night, something changed in him forever. He began writing differently. Songs about ghosts, shadows, the things we leave behind. They weren't metaphors anymore. They were real, stitched into every verse. His friends called it a phase. But Bill said he wasn't inspired. He was remembering. His home filled with strange relics. Not for decoration, but for connection. He collected items from country legends as if trying to hold on to them, to hear what they might say. By 2011, the basement of his home had become a shrine. In it sat an old 1940s radio. Every Friday night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., it played static, then faint guitar notes, footsteps on gravel, like someone pacing in a forgotten alley. He didn't call it crazy. He called it a signal. In 2017, his housekeeper found something strange behind the piano, an envelope. Inside was a photo, Bill standing beside Hank Williams backstage in 1952. A moment Bill had no memory of. A year when he should have been nowhere near Hank. On the back, scrawled in faded ink. When it starts making sense, don't run. The discovery shook him. For a man who had spent decades trying to make peace with what he knew, this was something that pushed him deeper into fear. Whispers began to swirl in 2023 about the Hank tapes. Recordings Bill had made in the 70s. Not of songs. Of something else. Memories, he called them. Sounds that didn't belong to this world. Producers hinted that these weren't demos. They were echoes, voices caught in time, answers to questions no one had asked out loud. Bill refused to talk about the tapes. When someone asked if they were real, he only said, "They were never mine." Then one winter night, Bill returned to the Grand Ole Opry. He performed a short set. Among the songs were never-before-heard ballads. Dark, heavy, ancient-sounding. Before one of them, his voice trembled as he said, "If you've ever heard a ghost whisper, you'll understand." The crowd didn't cheer. They listened. Some wept. Because it didn't feel like Bill was singing to them. It felt like he was singing through something older than all of them. Not long after, Bill retired quietly. No farewell tour. No big announcement. He returned to his cabin, to the radio that crackled each Friday, to the briefcase with secrets inside. On his 87th birthday, he posted just one sentence: "Some songs aren't written, they're remembered." That line went viral. Country artists posted tributes. Fans cried. And across the world, people began to look at Bill Anderson not just as a country legend, but as something more. A keeper of a story too big for one voice. A man who didn't chase ghosts, but listened when they spoke. Whether or not Hank Williams truly reached out from beyond, whether the letters, the photo, the tapes were real or imagined, one thing is certain: Bill Anderson lived with a story that most would never believe. And he told it the only way he could, softly, like a whisper in the dark. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We share more powerful, emotional, and hidden stories from the world of music that deserve to be heard.